So folks, I'm going to get started. Feel free to use the chat tool. I won't be answering questions because there's just so much content that I want to get through. So I won't be answering questions until the very end. And in fact, I'm going to give a real brief 1-2 about Market Smart and what we do in the sector, for the sector, why people pay us money for what we do. I'll give you a quick 1-2 about that at the very end of the webinar, and then I'll answer questions after that. So I hope you'll stick around. There will also be a survey that we invite you to take after the webinar presentation. And towards the end, I'll put up a QR code, but it'll also pop up when you leave. It is being recorded right now. The slides and everything will be sent out to you fairly shortly after this event concludes. And in fact, there's freebies and extras that I'll be describing a little bit as we go through here that I won't cover entirely in this presentation, but I believe you'll want to get, or at least take a look at, when we send you the slides. And so with that, I'm gonna get started. Hi, I'm Greg Warner. I am the CEO and founder of Market Smart. I guess you could say I'm the inventor. I do like to invent tools for the sector. I give most of what I come up with away for free. If you've ever heard of the fundraising report card or the DAF widget, these are two tools that I came up with and still give them away for free. I'm also the author of the book Engagement Fundraising, which you should see a link in the chat from my assistant, Trisha. In case you want it, you can get it in a variety of formats for free, completely no charge. And I hope you enjoy that little freebie gift just for signing up. All right, so who am I? I mean, not all of you may know me. It's very unlikely. So the short story, real quick, is that I guess saying I'm a ticked off donor. I'm really not. I mean, but I guess I was. I was running a marketing agency, and the more I gave, and when I became a major donor, the more I gave, the more I found that I didn't really like the engagement experience provided to me as a growing major donor. Um, I ended up helping one of the charities that I support, and what we did for them worked so well that we started getting referrals, and I decided to build software, change my marketing business from helping private sector businesses to instead helping the charitable sector. And I changed my business. I took all the money I had and I invested it into building software. I'm still the sole owner. There's no private equity funding or anything. What you see is what you get. I am the leader. I am the investor. And as we learned how to help charities do better marketing, I wrote a book, and it's titled Engagement Fundraising, and you can use that QR code or the link that Trisha supplied to get it for free. So that's the short story of the origin of how I got into this. Prior to starting my own marketing business, I had been in sales. I counted one time, I figured I made well over 30,000 cold calls when I started in sales and before I got referrals and really grew my business. But I learned how to make outreach to private sector business owners and such, and to sell. But I also, when I started helping the charity, it kind of made me ticked off and helped me to first come up with a system for the sector. We generated so many leads for the charity for major donors to consider giving assets and legacy gifts, that I actually ended up being the one that made the calls to the donors as a volunteer to help them connect with and finally set up an appointment with the gift officers. So I've got a pretty good sense of how to make outreach, and I hope you'll trust in that. Of course, I do lead a company with staff that is their job, is to make outreach. at least part of the company. So I have a pretty good idea of how this works, and I hope you get a lot out of this. This is just some of the amazing organizations that we work with. I know it's too many to really look at one time, but it just shows you that we've worked in pretty much every category. So I have a lot of empathy for you if you're on this event, if you're watching this presentation, because in the end, uh, a major gift of assets is not going to happen unless you get an appointment with somebody, right? But as Jerry Panis, for those of you who remember Jerry Panis from, I mean, he's been gone a few years now, but uh, wrote over 20 books on the subject of raising major gifts and capital campaigns and such. He once wrote that it's harder to get an appointment than to secure a gift. And getting that appointment, if you can get it, you're really about 85% of the way there to getting the gift. So before we continue, I want to involve you all a little bit in this event by asking you to take the first poll that I believe, let's make sure I do this right. There, thank you. Yeah, let's take the first poll. Is it harder to land an appointment than to close the gift? Tell me how greatly or you agree or disagree, and I'll give it about 15 seconds and we'll take a look at that. I'll share the results for you. So I'm going to give you I'll give you about 5 more seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Let's share those results. So yeah, look at that. Strongly agree. Most people either strongly or somewhat agree. Very good. Very good. All right. So let's you agree with Jerry Panis in general. So all right, let me move this out of the way. Apologies for the delay. And now let's take another quick poll. How strongly do you agree with this statement that landing appointments with passionate, wealthy supporters is getting harder? Getting harder. Is it getting harder or easier? You know, do you agree? It's getting harder. All right. Once again, we're getting a lot of activity, by the way. So I appreciate y'all participating in this, being attentive. Give it another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then I'll share these results. It's pretty much the same. So we've got some folks that are disagreeing, but the vast majority, almost 90, 85% strongly agreeing or somewhat agreeing. Terrific. Okay, so we've got the right people on this event. Let's do one more and then I'll move on. What's your biggest challenge related to outreach? And yeah, either supporters don't respond, they say I'll give, not sure what to say when I reach out. And I'll give that one another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you can, of course, put other challenges you're facing in the chat if you'd like to. I'm going to share these results. Let's see here. Overwhelmingly, it's that people don't respond to outreach. True. We're going to hit on that. So we're going to solve that problem today. It requires some work on your end, but I believe, whoops, so you already saw that. Okay, stop sharing. And I believe you'll get a lot out of that. Yeah, supporters don't respond. Supporters say, I'll give, I don't need a visit. Or they delay the visit and they say, I'm not sure what, or gift officers say, I'm not sure what to say when I reach out. But that was lesser voted on as the biggest challenge. So here's the thing. Here's why people don't respond to your outreach. And this is a kind of a gut punch, but I hope you'll stay with me on it. The truth is that the people you're reaching out to don't trust you. It's not your fault. It's just humanity. People are less trusting of others in general these days. Um, and that makes it harder for you to connect with people whom you know that they care about the cause, and they've been giving for so long, and they've engaged, and they pop up on the well screening and everything, and the predictive analytics, but they don't trust you. The second reason why they don't respond is your fault. Sorry to sound crass, but it's because the supporter oftentimes, when they get outreach, they don't see the value, what's in it for them to respond. And usually they fear that there's not much in it except for money leaving their bank account. So they're afraid. They don't want to respond because they don't know, what am I going to get out of responding. And this ends up happening because many people don't prepare properly for making outreach and providing value that builds trust. That's what we're really going to be talking about today, and I'm going to do it with 10 tips. But I know I'm using very strong words here. You failed and to prepare, and supporter doesn't see the value. They don't trust you. It is a gut punch, but it's reality, and we have to deal with reality, and we have to work to support the supporter. Help them want to move forward in the advancement process. So let's get into it with these tactics, these top 10 tips that I supply, and we're going to send out these slides. Don't worry, you'll get all of this later. All right, so the first tactic that I recommend is getting your mindset adjusted and straight. For most of you who are professionals in the field, you already know, and sometimes the new people really need help understanding this, is that you are not a solicitor. You're not a beggar, manipulator, arm twister, or extractor. If you take that mindset on, then people will sense it coming through whatever email you write or message you leave or text message you send. Instead, you are a loving, caring, helpful, generous, joyful person who is a value provider. You're a professional. You facilitate giving. You can be a VIP resource to help people understand how they can find meaning in their lives through sharing what they've got. If they only would accept you as their counselor and guide to help them give wisely and find meaning through that gift, right? So that's who you really are, no matter what anybody else thinks. And if you get that mindset right before you make outreach, you're going to be, and I know I get all kinds of metaphysical on this and philosophical, spiritual, but I promise you the vibrations that you send out through the phone, through your emails, through your messages will be conveyed if they're written and said in a way that positions you as a value provider and not as a solicitor or extractor. This is how you prove that you're trustworthy, is by proving that you deliver value to people like them, and that's your job. It's your job to be interested in them and to deepen relationships, to build that trust. When you have this mindset, you will land more appointments, which will lead to bigger gifts that you'll close faster. So that's number one, is you've got to get your mindset straight. Number two is recognizing the existence of what I like to call the valley of distrust. And I created a little picture here. It's like you're over here, they're over here. It's your job to figure out how to cross the chasm. It's not to land a meeting per se, it's to build trust, because you can't land a meeting unless you build trust and people trust you. So you've got to recognize that this chasm, this valley exists, and make sure to get your mindset aligned with this truth. If you don't, then your outreach will not be focused on building trust. It'll be rather focused on landing the meeting. In other words, if you don't recognize that the valley of distrust exists, you're going to be aiming to get something either for yourself or your organization, and that'll shine through your words and be conveyed through vibration. Instead, what you have to do is prove, and recognizing this, prove that you're worthy of trust because you're a value provider. Because on the other end of your messages is a person who wonders from past experience, they think to themselves, you don't really care about me. You just want my money. I don't need you. I'm too busy. I'm not interested. I don't see the value in what you offer. And then there's going to be the ones on the fence that say, well, not now, but maybe later. And they don't even know why they're saying that. They just don't want to be bothered. So that leads us to number 3. If we recognize that your primary role at first, in order to encourage people to respond to you, is to, or accept your outreach, is to build that trust, get over, position your mindset properly, get over the chasm of distrust by buying into what I call an engagement calling process. So what this means there's sort of a less is more. It's like we want to have at least 2 conversations with someone before we ask them for anything. Now, this is not there's an asterisk here because this is not a hard set rule. When people are inbound and they want a facilitator, they want your help, or when people are having such a great conversation with you that it's natural and they give you permission to go to the next step and they welcome it and they want to meet, then by all means, meet with them, invite them, set up the meeting, but I worry about having sort of drive-by appointment setting, where, and I've heard some other consultants in the field who recommend just ask for the appointment. And I get why they're doing that, because not enough people are actually asking for the appointment. But if you ask for the appointment before having a couple of conversations, or at least one conversation, then you may be running out the door to meet with people who really aren't ready and are not going to give, or at least not at a big level. And you could say, well, we're going to be building a relationship and this, that, the other thing. It's like, oh, yes, you're right. And especially if you're a very small nonprofit with a small donor base, then yes, just try and meet with pretty much anybody that seems like they have capacity. But if you're at a larger organization, you're really going to want to prioritize who you're meeting with, because you just don't have that much time. You just don't have that much time, and you have too many people to reach out to. So think about an engagement calling process where you first ask questions about them, not ask for money, and not ask for an appointment. Instead, you're asking for information, but in service to them, to help them recount why they care about your cause, who inspired them to care, what aspects of the cause they care about, what their timing is. Ask them what's their timing on considering a gift of assets, something substantial, something serious, something where they can really make impact, and try and find the people who are ready to actually meet with you and go on a journey of discovery and collaboration. when you ask those questions about them in the call and learn about them, then what you want to do is seek ways to provide value to them without asking for anything more than that feedback that they gave you. So you're not asking for a gift, you're not asking for a meeting necessarily. You're asking them questions about them so you can provide value, whether it's a recording of your primary researcher who's curing a disease, the most recent update on that, or a white paper on it, or information about scholarship opportunities or something like that, or even just thank you notes from past scholarship awardees. And there's plenty of things that people would love to see: recorded videos, certain content, your annual report, case for support, things that you could send to people to provide value and prove that you're worthy of their trust, because you're willing to take it a little bit slow. You're willing to listen to them, find out about them, and show that you care about them and not just their money, because you're just a connector. So this is like giving them a test drive that, yes, I heard you, I care about you, and I'm going to go to work for you and provide value to you that resonates, that's in line and personalized and relevant for your needs at this stage of your consideration process. By doing this, and by slowing things down and truly proving that you are a value provider and not a solicitor or extractor, you will build that trust and be able to ask them, can I call you again, and when? How about next month? And I'll update you again, or I'll give you this, or I'll give you that, whatever it is that you need. Okay, so that leads to the question people usually say when I'm at this stage. They say, okay, hold on. If I'm going to slow down, not ask for the appointment right away, how do I provide value? And what I want to recommend is that you first think about your supporter that you're talking to. Especially, you want to conduct research, and that the best research comes from them. Now, you could do that by making phone calls, which is very time consuming, and we'll get to this at the very end. You could employ a system like ours, whether you buy it from us or you do it on your own, where you help supporters pre-qualify themselves by providing them with offers like a survey or some kind of download where they fill out a form and they pre-qualify themselves. So prospect identification is kind of like, it's necessary, but it's kind of very 90s. And in this century, I'm of course selfishly saying this because I created a company that does this, but I think qualification is this century's more important feature. So to provide value, you want to conduct research and learn about them from them, either through a survey or through your first call where you ask questions about them. And you then can gain empathy for them related to their interests and why they care, what they care about, and where they are in the consideration continuum as far as timing goes. Then you can align what you have to give to them so that they build trust because you're providing value. So the qualification, what you want to learn from people is this short list. It's really, you want to know why they care, who inspired them, the level of passion they have for your cause, how your cause ranks compared to the others they support, the aspects of your work that interest them, if or whether they're interested in giving assets and the timing of that, and if they have any interest and what's the timing in meeting with you. These are the kind of questions you can get from a survey at scale, or you can do it by making calls and asking these kinds of questions. Usually you want to start with the top questions. Don't ever ask about money and giving without first building trust and rapport. So you're going to want to listen to what people say. That's what we at MarketSmart call verbatims. And then you're going to, if you have our system, you would be able to monitor what they do, monitor whether they're clicking on that video that you sent them or that report or whatever, because that's a further proof that they're actually leaning into the process. Now, one thing that's really important about this digital body language and whether people are leaning in and clicking and engaging is that recency of engagement is a powerful qualifier. So when people have clicked on that video, as an example, the recency feature means that they're going to be about 7 times more likely to accept your outreach and engage with you further and deeper. So don't ignore the recency, especially like when surveys come back or when you send a video. If you have click tracking technology, or if you're a MarketSmart customer, then of course you do. You're going to want to look to see who's engaging most recently and then reach out to them without being spooky, of course. And then, all right, so providing value is about thinking about the donor based on the information that they give you so that you understand what you can offer them to make them feel good and safe and informed. So I have on my website, and here this will be sent to you, the 35 amazing ways to engage people and provide value. You probably will only use a handful of these. I'll pick out like reports or ebooks, workbooks. I know workbooks are especially useful in legacy giving. People like to send those out, and donors like them for getting their estate plans in order. Just simply asking for advice, that file that under survey, or when you make outreach, just asking discovery questions. Tours, I know we've got some hospitals that do tours really well. Food banks also, I've heard, do them well. Others, museums and such. But yeah, tours, show and tell sessions, presentations of scientific research findings are very helpful. One interactions with beneficiaries of donations, like I mentioned earlier, scholarship winners and such. Providing people with volunteering opportunities. That's kind of a great gateway drug. And that way people can check out how you use their donations firsthand. So these, oh, and the surveys, of course, yeah, and webinars like this, in fact, is a webinar that we're using for that purpose to a degree. We're trying to provide you with some value. So I hope that helps. I won't read all these, but you'll get this when we send out the email, is that you want to consider whether the offer that you're recommending or you're sending to somebody is fair and we're truly delivering value to them. So you'll get this when we send out the slides. And that brings us to number 4 out of 10, is that now that you have learned a bit about them so you can be relevant and resonate, get over the valley of distrust, you want to not wing it. You want to sit down with a blank sheet of paper or a Google Doc or whatever you use these days, and you want to sit down and write down your opening line. And the reason why I say this is because you really only get about 20 seconds to convey value and prove that you're worthy of trust, if that. So you're going to want to think about what you say and write it down and edit it and edit it and edit it some more so that it really sounds good and natural. It's energetic, it's enthusiastic, but it's mostly value oriented about your making sure that you're positioned properly as a value provider for them, not an extractor who just wants to land a meeting so you can ask for money. Gong.io is actually in the private sector for salespeople, but we don't have this in this sector, but they studied a lot of opening conversations and looked at 4 of the ways people engage and what they say in their opening lines. And it was very interesting when I saw this study, is that people who start off by asking if is this a good time to talk, we're actually less likely to book a meeting. Now, I understand that in some parts of the country, and especially if you're a small local organization and you kind of know these people, you might want to ask that question to be polite because that's the way things work in your neck of the woods. But in general, the data is showing that it makes people less likely. Uh, if you ask a question about them, that's more pointed really about them, then it's more likely that you'll book that call, I mean that meeting. And if you're specific, although this is a little less likely, but specificity does make it more likely that you'll book a call compared to did I catch it at a bad time? And finally, interestingly, how have you been means results in exponentially more likelihood that they'll book a meeting with you. And I believe that this proves to a certain degree the point that I was saying about making an engagement calling methodology. Because if you already had that first call with somebody and you learned about them and maybe shared some information with them and they agreed to talk to you again, then in this second call, when you ask them, how have you been? Of course, all this means that you're more likely to book that highly qualified meeting. All right, some other tips are, well, which I've already hit on, is show them that you know and care about them, not their money. Be relevant, be not overly emotional, but passionate and enthusiastic to have gotten them on the line and appreciative. You know, ask a lot of questions. Ask a lot of questions. I know they used to say to me when I was learning how to sell in the private sector, selling is not, or telling is not selling. Asking questions is selling. So this is years ago. I can't remember what year this was, but my staff was like, all right, let's look at Greg's sales calls and see if he's really doing what he preaches. And then they broke it down and we could see that I was talking exactly 25% of the time while the donor, and what I was doing, I was making calls to one of our customers who I actually gave the system away to them for free, and they had nobody, and I wanted more practice talking to donors, and I was a donor, so I volunteered. I called up people, and this is the result of one of my calls with them, and you can see it's exactly, I'm practicing what I preach, so you can do it too. I know you can. All right, so we've made it through like halfway. We talked about adjusting your mindset to be a facilitator, recognizing that the existence of the valley of the distrust, bought into an engagement calling process, hopefully thought about offering value to make people feel good and trusting. And we talked about practicing your dialogue. So are you ready? Maybe, maybe. Let's talk a little bit more. Let's see. Let's get the rest of these in, and then I'll talk about quickly about Market Smart, and then we'll get into questions. One thing that makes people retreat and recoil is that they do that when they feel like they're losing power. People don't like to lose power and control. You know, it's kind of funny when you go shopping for clothes, someone comes up to you, is there anything I can help you with? And, or, you know, you're like, no. Well, why do you do that? It's because you want to maintain control of the browsing process. You don't want somebody. Now, if you do want help, then you might give away that power and say, look, I need help. Can you just get me in and out of here? Can you show me where this is? Then you do that. But a lot of times we just don't want to give away power. So it's important that you recognize that and allow people to have power. Let them stay in control. Pushiness and all the tricks that some people might recommend in order to sort of manipulate people only makes them feel less powerful and powerless. So it usually backfires. What I recommend instead is using types of words and phrases that help people feel safe. So saying softening statements like, I'm not calling today to ask you for a donation, and you can end this call at any time. Don't worry, it's completely up to you. You never have to act. It's up to you. I really don't want you to ever feel pressured. Or why don't we just pencil this into your calendar if you're not quite sure, and then I'll follow up and we'll nail it down. Things like this make people feel empowered, and it actually it does the opposite of what you might fear. You might fear like, hold on, I don't want to pencil it into the calendar. I want to land that appointment. Well, it doesn't matter what you want. Remember, we got to give the power back to them. And what they want is sometimes to have it penciled in, which doesn't mean anything. I mean, you're just going to send them the same calendar appointment on, through Google or whatnot. It's just using those words to help someone feel like they have the power. The other thing is to be curious. Curiosity is really the king of this whole thing. If you're genuinely curious about them and about helping them find meaning through giving and asking a ton of questions, like when in doubt, never tell, always ask questions. That should be your muscle memory. And then truly listen to the answers. Don't think too far in advance. Well, like you're thinking of the chess match. What am I going to ask them next? No, really listen to what they're saying and then reflect what you heard so that you prove that you heard what they said. So say things like, oh, so it sounds like, or it sounds like what you're saying is, and let me get this right. Is this right? Is this what I heard? Things like that. If you do this, it shows that you really care. It makes setting the appointment exponentially more likely because you're getting over that chasm of distrust. So now, and again, my crassness shows through. Sometimes people don't like that. I apologize, but I'm using the words shut up. When you do finally ask for the meeting, be crystal clear about what that is, when you want to meet, why you want to meet, and then leave it. Just leave it out there and be quiet. The person who talks first, I mean, if it's you, loses. Oftentimes, if there's a long pause or silence on their end when you make that request, is because they're thinking. Let them think. If you don't, they'll usually end up going in the direction that you don't want and frankly is probably not good for them. They'll just recoil. So keep your mouth shut. Count. Whoops. Yes, sorry if I went on mute for a second. I want to go into examples of what you could say and then be quiet. And usually this will be after a warm ask. This will be a warm ask. Again, in most cases, I don't recommend that you just call people and land an appointment. You may end up running out the door and meeting with people you shouldn't be meeting with in that case. So here's just one. Name, that's a name. Julie, I'll use Julie as the name. Your story is fascinating. It would be great to learn more about you and your interests so I can work with you on your behalf to help you get more out of your relationship with our shared mission. Why don't we get together next week, perhaps on Tuesday? What do you say? Now, you may notice how many times the word you or we or our is in there compared to I. When you write out these kinds of messages, if you're using the word I or me too often, and especially if it's more than you or your or our, then there's a problem. So that's an early indicator that your message is focused on you and not on them. So again, there are a whole bunch more in here, and they're going to be sent to you when we send you the slides. But we don't have enough time to go over all these. but I hope you'll enjoy seeing all these different recommendations. All right, so we understand all this. Hopefully, I was clear enough that you should be quiet, let them think. And one pet peeve of mine, generally speaking, not always, is to start out, especially in the first call, saying, "I'm just reaching out to update you." Eh, eh, People kind of know what that means. They're like, are they really updating me? Or do they just want to ask me for money? Like, so I'd be careful with that one unless you're really good and you know the person and you truly are updating them because you know what they specifics they want to update about. All right. One more recommendation on number 6 here. Consider an alternate close. This is borderline manipulative, but it's also very helpful. I wouldn't say it's manipulative because it's helpful to say, look, are you interested in mornings or do you prefer afternoons? Are Tuesdays good or how about Thursdays? People like a menu, they like choices. It helps narrow down their decision making. So consider using what's known as the alternate close in there. Okay, so number 7, leave voicemails. I consider voicemails as radio messages, even if you're leaving 2, 3, 5, 10 over the course of a year or more. Leaving voicemails gets people used to you. And if you're energetic, enthusiastic, and always providing value, then they will come to recognize you as a trusting individual who that when the time is right for them to call you back, they finally will. I promise. But don't hang up after all that time you did researching and getting ready for the call, and then just leave. I mean, you're there. Leave the voicemail. They will listen to it. In fact, yesterday I just got a thank you call from someone, and I liked the way she did it from a charity that I gave to. And she said, "This is a one-way thank you and gratitude call. I'd love to hear back from you and hear your story. But if you're not interested or the timing's not right, no problem. I just wanted to thank you for your latest gift." I was like, this is terrific. We should hire her. So, all right, let's move on because we've only got a short period of time. I want to get it all in here. I do strongly recommend that you test LinkedIn messaging and texting. Wealthy people are on LinkedIn. Not all of them, but the ones that are, they use it, and you can circumvent their email inbox, and they usually have way fewer in-mails than they do emails. So you can get right to the top of communication, especially if they're heavily invested in LinkedIn or texting. If they've given you their phone number, just be very permission oriented. When you reach out to people in these channels, they're different channels. We understand they're alternative. Say, I hope you don't mind me reaching out to you through this channel. But I was curious if you might want to provide feedback or this, that, the other thing. So I strongly consider texting. In here, you'll see, and it's at the very end of the slides when we sent them out, is some information on how to do that through LinkedIn. And then, just the point of doing pretty much the same thing in texting. Just always have that value-oriented mindset. The number 9 is that it can get kind of depressing if you're making a lot of outreach and you're not getting connections or responses. So I want you to consider writing down your hashtags and your hash marks here, and counting your failures, what could be considered failures because you didn't get a response immediately, and count it as a success because you left a message that was value oriented and that most likely helped someone move over the chasm of distrust, but they didn't prove it yet. They didn't respond to you. It doesn't mean you're not doing good work. So count the messages or the emails and such that you send as successes, not failures. Eat the donut. Don't worry about the whole. I don't know if that's the right analogy. The other reason is that if people don't respond to you, they're actually helping you because they're sort of disqualifying themselves by saying not really no. And in most cases, a no is never a no forever. It's just a not now in most cases, if these people truly care. Okay, so it's a good disqualifier. It means I don't need to worry about this person that intensely right now. They're not ready. All right, so that brings us to number 10. Kind of maybe should have been number one, because if you leverage referrals, you'll find that referrals are going to close faster and at a higher level all the time. It's the same for us here at MarketSmart. In fact, we just got a new customer. It was the fastest close we ever had. A customer contacted us 36 hours later. They had signed a contract. It was a referral. They just believed everything the referral told them, and they were like, yes, sign me up, give me the contract, I'm ready to go. So leverage your referrals from, and there's a whole science about that, which I won't be able to get into, but think about who you know in your midst, usually a board member or a volunteer or somebody else who knows the people that you're trying to make outreach to. If they can introduce you, you'll be much further along. So, okay, so those are the 10 points that I wanted to cover for you today. If you do these, if you really take these on, I promise you, you'll get more qualified appointments, and they'll almost set themselves. Like through your dialogue, you'll just sense it that people are almost, the fish are jumping into your boat and they're wanting to meet with you. All right, so I know that there are a lot of questions. I can see them. I'm going to give you the 1-2 on MarketSmart. If you decide you don't want to hear that and you want to leave now and you don't want to hear me answer questions, go ahead and click on this QR code, and you could take, if you don't mind, give me feedback on this presentation so I can improve for you next time and going forward. So it would be great to hear your feedback. Please use that QR code. I'll take it down in 3 seconds and move on. And I'm gonna jump out of this presentation to show you a little bit about MarketSmart. All right. So thanks for staying. All right. So different slide deck here. So how does MarketSmart help folks like you and your organizations? We are a turnkey, outsourced, done-for-you marketing support team, software, and system. We help with mostly raising of major gifts and legacy gifts, and also moving mid-level donors up. But what we found is fascinating is that all boats rise when you implement a system like ours. This is just one customer. It happens to be a small college. But what we could see is that through our automation system, which I'll show you in just a second, low dollar donors who were previously engaged by our system, our automation system, gave more than 250% more. And what we're comparing here, the blue is people that MarketSmart did not engage, and the yellow is people that we did engage. So low dollar donors and high dollar donors increase their giving when and their retention in every other category. We have a case study on this. We could send you if you're curious. But through automation and automated cultivation and qualification, people give more. It's like less is more. You don't have to call everybody and ask everybody for gifts. You can automate a lot of this, and then the most wealthy people who are most ready to talk to you will lean into the process. And that's what MarketSmart helps do. We help you zero in on the people who are ready to engage with you right now and talk about giving assets and sharing, or for all the rest, we cultivate them with non-solicitous, one-to-one, seemingly from a human to human, text only. It's not big marketing. It's not asking for money or to participate in a gala or something. It's just pure cultivation to warm people up. And this helps mid-level donors migrate upwards as well. So the system comes with a 10-to-1 ROI guarantee. We aim for 100-to-1 guarantee with every customer, but we guarantee 10-to-1 as long as you are qualified, and that it means that people will respond to your emails. And we recommend just look at your budget. In some cases, it's less than 1% of the total fundraising budget to employ our system. It's certainly less than a new employee that you might hire to go out and go get them. This helps the whole organization do better. So one way to think of it is that the traditional route is to identify prospects and assign them into caseloads. And then it's up to the gift officers to qualify them, which can lead to a lot of wild goose chases, because what we've heard from the research is that only 1/3 of assigned identified prospects from wealth screening and prospect research and such are truly qualified to be in a caseload. This is according to gift officers. So that means 2/3 of your time is spent on people who never should have been assigned in the first place. These are the false positives and wild goose chases. The other thing is that all the while, all of you, I bet, have gotten legacy gifts or major gifts kind of come in over the transom or through a referral or the side door, and you're like, oh, that person wasn't even in our database. How did that happen? So we recommend a more donor-driven qualification approach, maybe a little less focus on identification. Of course, you still need that, but a little less emphasis on that. And instead, help the donors move themselves forward by giving you their qualitative data about them, so you can then warm them up with cultivation and engagement calling, so that you give them a better giving experience. They're more trustful for you, of you, which leads to a more efficient fundraising operation. So you're talking to the right people at the right time. This makes your team more effective. It helps you raise more money at lower cost. And in the end, truly, you end up with less turnover because your gift officers are focused on doing what they really love to do, which is build relationships with people, not go on wild goose chases. So the key here is to insert a preliminary qualification zone into your operation. And that means that, and of course, if you're using MarketSmart, that's what we do for you, is we help you engage people so that they give you the verbatims and they click on things and you see their digital body language for prioritization based on recency and based on what they've told you about where they are in their consideration stage for giving assets. That's the high level. Again, it's 10-to-1 ROI guaranteed. We aim for 100-to-1. This is just one testimonial. We have so many of someone getting 60-to-1, like right off the bat, hadn't even scratched the surface. But we've got plenty more testimonials and folks. I love this one from Cheryl. People are reaching out to me instead of the other way around. How refreshing is that? Exclamation point. Thank you, Cheryl, if you're on the call. So lastly, it's a very simple system that we run for you. You don't have to do very much. Start with a survey. We collect their verbatims. That propagates and spawns the email cultivation, all automatic. Looks like it's coming from you. Seemingly is coming from you, because if they respond, they'll respond to you, and then you can take it from there. Oftentimes it'll help people, the donors, click around on your website, which treats them like a VIP, and then we monitor their engagement there so that they move themselves through the consideration continuum and prioritize themselves in our dashboard or through notifications that we send you, so that you know who's ready for outreach and who's ready to meet. And all this comes with our customer success team. We never leave you hanging. Doesn't cost money to talk to us. We just help you win. So, all right, there's an opportunity analysis that we'd be happy to give anybody who's interested at no cost to determine what ROI you're likely to get based on the data that we've got from hundreds of other organizations that we've been working with. And we recommend you consider maybe doing a little less email spam or direct mass market junk mail postage, just see if you could trim your budget in these areas a little bit and focus on engagement with us. All right. Sorry for such a long pitch. Hopefully that helped you understand what we're doing for folks in the sector. And it looks like I've got a few more minutes to answer questions. So, and I'll stay on after the top of the hour and happy to try and get through all of these. So first one comes from Sydney, says, have you found success in surveys of your donors or potential donors to gain trust and create relationship? Yes and no. So Sydney, I'm going to tell you, when I first came up with this 16 years ago, no, it wasn't that long ago. It was maybe 13 years ago. Uh, we used to survey people and then we would follow up with as many as we could, and we created this automated cultivation. But some of our customers didn't want to do the cultivation, and some of them took the surveys and they skimmed off the top and only called the people who were ready to meet now. In fact, one customer sadly said, I said, what do you do with the rest of those survey responses? And he said, I treat them like they never happened. And I was like, okay, that's not good. That doesn't sound good as a donor. And what we found when we looked at the data is that organizations that survey people without a cultivation plan to prove that they listened actually end up driving those donors away and generating less revenue. So have we found success? Yes. Surveys are unbelievably powerful, but they are like hammers. Hammers can fix and build stuff, but they can also break stuff. So be careful. Nowadays, there's tons of vendors out there who have kind of taken my ideas on our methodology, and they are selling surveys. We do surveys. Well, if you do surveys, be very careful to employ cultivation or follow up with phone calls, because if you don't, you may, and especially if you're just if you're in the plan giving department, you may win in plan giving, but you'll be destroying your annual fund, and your annual fund person will have no idea why they're not getting as many donations. And it's because y'all proved that you didn't really care what they said in the survey. That's not nice. Sorry, that was a long time on just one question. So what are some resources for best written templates when reaching out to donors, trying to hear from them? I would take, frankly, the slides that I sent to you and sit down and prompt ChatGPT by telling them that you want to build trust. You have to prompt it properly, explaining the things I talked about in this lesson, that you want to build trust. You don't want to just land an appointment. You don't want to get the answer. So one resource is ChatGPT, but you've got to prompt it properly. Another is, my book. And frankly, I've been working on another book called Making Outreach, which is a lot of these lessons, and I'm happy to share it with anybody who wants to comment on it, because I've gotten mixed reactions and I've been holding back on publishing it. So that's from an anonymous attendee, but if you'd like that, just reach out to me and I'll send you the galleys of that book, and we'll see what you think. How would you advise using LinkedIn for a lapsed donor? Well, first, I would connect with them and see if they'll even connect with you. If they do, then you can engage them in conversation. But the thing is most lapsed donors don't know they're lapsed. They don't think of themselves as a lapsed donor. They didn't even realize that they were signing on to giving yearly. That's not in their mindset. They never agreed to that contract. Unless you got them to agree to that, they won't know they're lapsed. So don't treat them like a lapsed donor. Treat them like a human being that cares about your shared cause, whom you want to engage through value provision that proves that you're worthy of their trust. Hope that made sense. Where do you get phone numbers? Well, that's a challenging one. You can do it with big data sources, but they're usually wrong. The best way to get phone numbers is to ask for them on your survey. Or in form downloads, like if you have content and you send someone to that form down, put it in there that it's required that they give you their phone number. People will give you their phone number. It's amazing, especially if they care about your cause. So that's how we get them. How many times do you follow up with a prospect when you consider them disqualified? Generally, I don't believe in the 7 times and no response kind of idea. I believe that you follow up gently and politely, persistently, with positioning yourself as a value provider. And if you are consistently doing that, you should never stop unless they respond to you and tell you to take them off your list. Uh, Generally, if you are out there giving to people, they will not get angry at you for following up, even if it's over the years. And then when they finally call you back or you get them on the line, they treat you like they've known you forever. Because even though you've never spoken to them even once, it's an amazing thing. They're like, oh yeah, I know you. I know, yeah, let's talk. And you're like, but you've been ignoring me for 7 years. I've left you 43 messages, you know? But if your messages are always enthusiastic and passionate and caring and concerned about them and offering value in one way or another, it's like people want to be invited to the party, but just because they're not going doesn't mean that you should stop inviting them. Okay. What are some ways you have followed up with someone when you have seen them engage with click-through reports, but not creepy about it? Yeah. So generally what you want to do is engage in questions, ask them questions about them. So in other words, you generally are not going to want to say, oh, hi, I just saw that you downloaded that report. Unless that fits and that's reasonable for you to do that. But even then they know you're usually going to say something like, so I'm just reaching out because you downloaded the report. And is there any questions I can answer for you? That's not really truly being a value delivery resource. Rather, if you ask them questions about them, it's really the same answer. It's always the same answer. Ask questions about them and be a value provider. Help them connect with the parts of your cause that are most meaningful for them, that resonate, that will build trust that in you, that you are a connector, a facilitator, a collaborator. So it's really just asking questions. The recency indicator just makes it more likely that they'll respond because now you're top of mind. Okay, what does an organization need to have systems and resources to maximize our product? Actually, you don't need to have very much at all, Alberto. So I won't get into the sales discussion. I'd encourage you to reach out to some of our staff. I mean, you do need someone who will meet with wealthy, passionate people. So if you don't have a human, whether it's the CEO of your organization or a gift officer or even an attorney, if it's legacy gift, you have to have somebody who will take the qualified leads, self-qualified. You've got to have somebody who can carry the ball over the finish line. All right. So Sarah, what are examples of showing you listened to someone's survey results? Well, that's a good one because you can call and say to someone asking not about their money and how they want to give, but asking about them. It's like, for instance, oh, Julie, thank you so much for filling out that survey. I see that the person who was instrumental for you, you said was Professor Williams. And I don't know if you knew that Professor Williams is still here and sometimes loves to catch up with alumni like you. So, showing that you listened is just recounting to them what they told you, especially if it's in a survey. If they did it in a survey, it isn't spooky for you to convey to them what you heard. So I highly recommend that you read the survey, but just don't call and say, hey, it says here that you're also interested in giving real estate. Let's talk. Reserve that for later. You never want to prove to people that you only care about their money and not so much about them. All right, wow, in the chat, there's 75 messages. So I guess I've hit a chord here. I'll start from the bottom. No, well, I guess I'll start from the bottom. Big fan. Oh, all right, Steve, big fan of Market Smart. Thank you, Steve. Really appreciate you. Um, yeah, thank you. All right. I think it's indicating that they're in the right headspace. Okay, so this is a lot of dialogue. I'm not sure if I have questions in here. I think they were mostly in the Q&A. So please, again, take the survey after this. I'm always looking to improve. I don't see any other questions in here. So yeah, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending this. I hope you got a lot of value out of it. Um, and feel free to engage me. I do respond. All right. Thank you very much. It was great seeing you all, and I really appreciate having you. Have a great day.